Hey guys, so I am here by myself, and I'm going to go over the remainder of the questions just in case you need me to finish your EOC project. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're on question 322, and then we'll go from there. So let's look. If two different lines are, hold on, there's a lot of noise outside. Okay, question 322. If two different lines are perpendicular to the same line, then they are. So this is one where we kind of just think of slopes. I'm wondering where my toolbar is all of a sudden. Hold on. There it is. Okay, so let's look. So because perpendicular, we know perpendicular means that the slopes have to be opposite reciprocals. So for example, if my original slope is 2, then in order for it to be perpendicular, the slope of the other line has to be -1/2. So if I have one line here, and I have one line here, and it says two different lines are perpendicular to the same line, to the same plane, then what are they? Wait, why am I even doing this question? Oh yeah. Basically, it's coplanar. That's all that you need to know. And really, this is a question that's not going to be on your EOC test, but that's kind of it because it says it's on the same plane. So the use of the term same plane means same planar plane. Collinear would be it's on the same line. Congruent lines are never congruent. And I can't think of one time I've ever heard of consecutive lines. So you might have consecutive line segments, but consecutive lines, I don't know if you would have. Next one, in the rectangle, ABCD shown in the diagram below is going to be reflected across the x-axis. Here's the x-axis. We know we always want to count boxes. So here I've got 1, 2, 3 to the x, 1, 2, 3 down. Here's my first point. This one is 5, 5 at the 2. This would be 6, 10 for C. And B would be 8, 8, 8, 8. And I put 6, 10 on the wrong one. That makes more sense. So we've got this reflection. And we can even label it to make sure. Here's our C and our D. Now we'll see what is not preserved. Well, the slope of AB is a positive slope. The slope of AB here is a negative slope. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be this one, but let's just double check. The parallelism of AB and CD, well, that's going to be the same because these two lines are parallel, and down here, these two lines are also parallel, so it's not 2. AB deals with distance, so obviously the lengths are going to be the same. It's not a dilation. And it says a rectangle, and so that means this is going to be a right angle, and this is going to be a right angle, so it's not 4. So the answer was indeed choice 1. So sometimes if you get to a question like this, and when I first looked at it, I'm like, I think it's here, but I was a little bit confused because I didn't say like A prime, B prime. So sometimes you just have to think logically through the other choices and see what makes the most sense. 324, I'm assuming this is a negative. What is an equation of a line that contains this point and is perpendicular to here? Well, here's our first line that they gave us. So our slope, as we know, is -3. So if our slope is -3, our perpendicular slope has to be positive 1/3 because of the opposite reciprocal. Now, because I know it's positive 1/3, I know it's not choice 2 or 1. I'm not exactly sure what the sign is here. I'm assuming it's a negative, but I'm just going to plug my values into here. So I'm going to have, well, it does -1 equal 1/3 times 3. It doesn't because these cancel. -1 doesn't equal +1. So it can't be choice 3. So it must be choice 4. Next. In the diagram below, under which transformation did it occur? Well, let's see. Here's A goes to A. Oh, look at this. Our B is here, and our other B is all the way over here. So right now, if we only saw these lines, it could be a reflection. But look what happens to C. C doesn't just move this way for it to be a reflection. If C moved that way, this would be the triangle that we would have for the reflection. So we know it's not a glide reflection. We know it's not a translation because it's turned. It's not a dilation because it didn't get bigger or smaller. So it has to be a rotation. And it's a rotation simply because, as I shared, our A and B, we know that it kind of moved, and also this C, in order for it to get down here, it had to move. So really, it was a rotation of 180 degrees. How many common tangent lines can be drawn to the two externally tangent circles shown below? Well, it's going to be this way is going to be 1, and here's going to be 2. And now if the two circles were apart, there would actually be 4. It would be 1 this way, 1 this way, 1 this way, and 1 this way. There'd be 4 tangent lines. But because the tangents share the same point, there's only 3 lines that can be drawn. So the answer is choice 3. Again, I don't think you're going to have many questions about that type of stuff on the Georgia EOC. Surface area, we're not covering. Surface area is not on the EOC. Question, page 6. Okay, here we've got, let me mark off 327 so I remember that you don't need it. A right circular cylinder has a volume of 1,000 cubic inches and a height of 8. Well, we know from the formula sheet that pi r squared h is the formula for volume. It says that the volume is 1,000. Pi just stays the same. We don't know the radius, and the height is 8. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8 pi. And you are not going to get a fantastic calculator on the EOC. I'm not even sure if there's a pi button off the top of my head. So you might have to just divide by 3.14. And if that's the case, it's no big deal. So we'll divide by 3.14, divide by 8, and that leaves me 39.81 equals x squared. There is a square root button. You might have to hit the second key on the calculator for the EOC. And when we take the square root of this, we're left with 6.3. That's the answer to choice 1, 328, choice 1. Again, I don't think you're going to see a lot with planes in plane P. So it's the same plane. L, or lines M and N intersect at point A. If line K is perpendicular at that point, then I'm pretty sure it's going to be choice 3 it is. So basically, think of a box. And oftentimes when I have to do with things with planes, I draw, even though this is horrible, a cube. So it tells me that lines M and N intersect at a point. And if K is a line perpendicular to M and N, so I'm going to have this be line M and this be line N. And then it says K is perpendicular to both of these. Here's K. What do we know? Well, in order for it to be the case, we know that M and N have to be on the same plane. So that would be choice 3. Again, we haven't really covered that because I don't expect you're going to see a lot of that on the EOC, if any. Here's the diagram below of circle. O, chords A and E intersect at B. It gives us arc measure. Now, here's the issue. Because it gives us arc measure, you might be tempted to think, oh, these are central angles, so this is 36, this is 36. You will be wrong. It only works if it goes through the center, and it clearly doesn't. So because of that, these interior angles form an X. Now, these angles are also vertical angles, which makes them the same, but the main thing is that vertical angles form an X. So basically, we add the arcs, and then we divide by 2. So I've got 36 plus 20 divided by 2, 56 divided by 2. Now look at, they gave you 56 as an answer, hoping that you were going to select that one, but the answer is choice 3, which is 28. Okay. Next, in the diagram below, we have our ABC is shown. What is the total number of lines of tangency that are common? I just went over this. The answer is 4. It's common because you could go this way, you could go this way, so you can do the 2 parallel lines, and then you can also do the inside lines, which I always stink at doing it, but kind of like that, and kind of like that, but you get the point. So it would be 4 lines for that one. 332, what's the slope of a line that's perpendicular to this? Well, our original slope is -2/3, so we know our perpendicular slope is the opposite, positive, reciprocal, flip the fraction. +3/2, choice 4. Now you get 100 of those questions and know how to do those questions. Questions, page 7, I'm on page 64. Looking at question 333.
Good afternoon. It is now after 2:30. If you are now with a teacher,
It
coach,
says
or
towns
sponsor, please
A
exit the
and
building.
B
Again, it is now after
are
2:30. If you're
16
now with a
miles
teacher,
apart.
coach, or sponsor, please exit the building. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
So we know that this distance is 16. How many points are 10 miles from town A and 12 miles from town B? Well, if I do 10 and 12, I know I'm going to end up getting more than 16. So I know that they're going to overlap. Even though a town is bigger than a dot, for our purposes, we're going to make it a dot. Here, if this is halfway, this is about 8.
Good afternoon, Cameron Span. If you're in the building,
so we know this is about 10
If you're in the building, please report to
units
the front
away,
desk immediately.
with the radius being 10. Then here, we know it has to be 12. So here's 8, here's 12. And here's this one. And then we can draw our line. It's almost like a perpendicular bisector, but we're not doing it exactly in half. We're changing the radius. This radius was 12, and the green radius was 10. So we have 2 points that overlap. And now I just want to make sure I did that correctly. I did. Cool. 2 points overlap. Another one with the planes. We have a picture, K1, K2, intersect at point E. We have a perpendicular. What thing is always true? Basically, as you can tell, these are on the same plane. And remember, a plane is like a piece of paper. So K1 and K2 are all on the same piece of paper, so to speak, with the paper being like this. And this line is perpendicular to that. So it's going to be choice 3. Again, I don't expect you to see that down here very much. The line that's parallel, here we've got y equals x plus 2. That gives us a slope of 1. Parallel means our parallel slope is just going to be the same, a slope of 1. So we need to see which of these have a slope of 1. I'm going to make my font a little bit smaller so we can see it more easily. Here, if I subtract x from both sides, that's going to give me y equals -x plus 5, which does not give me a slope of 1. That's awfully light for the blues. So that gives me a slope of -1, so that's not true. Here, if I subtract 2x from both sides, I'm left with y equals -2x, blah, 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 blah. Again, that's not what I'm looking for. Here, I have to add x to both sides, and that's going to give me what I need. Y equals x minus 1. This slope is 1, which is what I'm looking for my parallel slopes. So it's choice 3. In triangles ABC, it tells us that AB is 4, AC is 5, DE is 8, DF is 10. Oh, so there's 2 different triangles. So I'm going to draw one triangle, ABC. Order matters. So remember, I've asked you, anytime you see two triangles, write them one on top of each other so you know how to match the letters. So we've got A, B, C. D, E, F clearly has bigger measurements. I'm going to make sure that my A and my D are in the exact same place. Here's my A, here's my D. Then I have to make sure my B is in the same place as my E, and likewise that my C is in the same place as my F. So I need to make sure that I pay attention to that. So that's D, E, and F. Remember, they might change the order of the letter, so you have to make sure you match it up. That's why it's so critical that you do this. You don't want the one question you get wrong on the EOC to be that you didn't match things up. Which method could be used? Well, it tells us AB is 4, AC is 5, DE is 8, and DF is 10. And it tells us that A and D match. So let's think about it. Well, 4 times 2 is 8, and 5 times 2 is 10. So I know that the sides are proportional. So I can eliminate choice 4 and choice 1 because then now I have two sides that match up. I also have an angle that matches up, and that angle happens to be sandwiched between my two sides. So as a result, it's choice number 2, side, angle, side. Here's our triangle. Notice that it's not drawn to scale. They did that on purpose. It tells you AC is 7, AD is 18, BC, sugar shoots, AD is 6 rather, and BC is 18. What is the length of DB? Now, because this is not drawn to scale, we can't just right away say that it is 6 unless they had said that that was the midpoint. And it did not say that. Now, here's the issue. Anytime that you have a triangle, I've told you in the past that you have to make sure that if you add up any two sides of the triangle, you will always get a number that's bigger than the third side. If not, it'll never work. So because of that, I have to know that when I take 7 plus 18 and add that up, it's always going to be bigger than that x plus 6 added up together to make up this bottom side. Well, 7 plus 18 is 25. And if I subtract 6 from both sides, now I'm not changing the sign because I'm not multiplying or dividing by a negative number. All I'm doing is subtracting. I know my answer has to be greater than than 19. So 5 is not greater because, and I mean, you can even do the math. 6 plus 5 is 11. 11 is not bigger than 18, so it can't be choice number 1. Here we've got 6 plus 12. Well, 6 plus 12 is exactly 18, and 18 plus 7 is 25, and that wouldn't work. Here we have 6 plus 19, which is exactly 25, but it has to be bigger. So it can't be choice 3. It's got to be choice 4, which would give us a side of 31 because 6 plus 25 is 31. Next. We're not going to do all these. We will stop at 350 just in case you needed it. Here we've got a right cylinder cone. It has a diameter of 8. So right away we see the word diameter. What do we do? Radius 4. And it's got a height of 12. What is the volume of the cone to the nearest inch? Oh, sugar shoots. The formula for cone is 1/3 times pi times the radius squared times the height. So I've got volume equals 1/3 times pi. I look down here and I notice that pi is not in any of my answers, so I will be multiplying by 3.14. I know my radius is 4 and my height is 12. And the radius being 4 is very important because if I put in 8, they probably would have the answer matched down here. All right, now I'm just going to do some multiplication. I always like to divide by 3 last. So I'm going to do 3.14 times, I'm going to do 16 because I know in my head 4 times 4 is 16, times 12. When I get that? I get 602.88, which hint is right here, but that means I did not divide by 3. So now that I've multiplied this out to get 602.88, I have to divide by 3, and that gives me, actually I'm solving for, oh yeah, I'm solving for the volume. That gives me 200.96, which clearly will be choice. Oh no! Next, we have secants that are drawn to circle O from an external point J. So here's my circle O. Here's from my external point. Almost looks like a sideways Ninja Turtle. Here, anyway, random thing. Here's JKL and JMN. And then we're going to label. Let's move this down. It says JK is 8, LK is 4, JM is 6. It wants to know the length of the entire piece, but I'm just going to put this little guy down here as X. This is an OW problem. Outside times whole equals out times whole. So for JL, my outside piece is 8. My entire piece is 12. For JN, my outside piece is 6. My entire piece is X plus 6. Now, all I need to do is multiply and set them equal to each other. Well, I'm going to have 8 times 12 equals 6 times X plus 6. This is 96 equals 6X plus 36. Subtract 36 from both sides. Divide. And I get X equals 10. Oh, look, my answer's right here. No, it is not. This one's the length of JN. So I know that X equals 10, but I have to add 10 plus 6 to get JN, which happens to be 16. 16 candles. Y'all are too young for that song. This one you don't need to do. We teach it in algebra in Georgia. Next, in the diagram below, PS is a tangent to circle O at point S. PQR is a secant. It tells us that PS is X, PQ is 3, and PR, this whole thing, is X plus 18. This is, again, another OW problem. However, here for the tangent, our outside is X, but our whole thing is also X because we only care about it touching the circle. So we have X and X. Here, our outside piece was 3, and they were generous to give us our whole piece to begin with, which was X plus 18. Now we can just do the math. We're going to have X times X equals 3 times X plus 18. Again, I doubt you're going to see something this extensive down here. I want to say it's 54. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides, and I'm going to subtract 54 from both sides. So I'm left with x squared minus 3x minus 54 equals 0. Now, if you know how to factor, you also could at this point just plug things in, because if they gave you PS, well, let me finish the problem. So here you're going to have to factor. So we know that x minus 9 and x plus 6. Well, negative 9 times positive 6 gives you negative 54. Negative 9 plus positive 6 gives you negative 3. Set each of these equal to 0. This gets rejected because it's not positive, so my answer is choice 2. That is the correct way to do this problem. Let me show you the easy cheating way / hack way to do it. If you know this formula right here, you're pretty much set, all you have to do is plug this stuff in. So you've got 6 times 6 equals 3 times 6 plus 18. Well, 6 times 6 is 36. Here you've got, did I do that right? I did that right. Here you've got, now I just am doubting myself. No, I did do it right. 6 plus 18 is 24. So obviously 72 does not equal 36, so it's not choice 1. You would do the same thing like for 3. Well, 3 times 3 equals 3 times 3 plus 18. 3 times 3 is 9. We already know that here this is 21. 9 obviously is going to be less than 63. So let me show it to you correctly. All we're going to do, 9 times 9, does that equal 3 times 9 plus 18? Well, 9 times 9 is 81. Does that equal 3 times 27? If you do the math, it does. So because of that, we also could just do trial and error. You still needed to know this first equation here, but once you had this equation, you didn't have to do all this extra stuff. This stuff is the correct way to do it, but you could have just used it for your advantage and plugged it in for X and see what would have worked. Question 342, the answer is 1. Point A is not contained on plane B. So basically, again, every time I see these problems, I always draw a box. Okay, it tells me that point A is not on plane B. So I'm going to color down here as my plane B. So point A is not on it. How many lines can be drawn from point A to the plane that's also perpendicular? Well, perpendicular means I need a 90-degree angle. Snoop, right there. 1 line can be drawn. That's it. Okay, yay, we're almost done. Which diagram shows the construction of an equilateral triangle? If you don't know, it's number 1. Basically, we're copying line segments. That's it. So you measured this one. We have this one here. Is our arc is the same from here to here. And then you would just also then move the compass and go that way. So that's where that came from. So 2, I don't know what 2 is. I have no idea what 3 and 4 are. So we'll move on. A rectangular prism has a volume of that. It has a length of x plus 2, a width of 3, which expression? Ooh, this is a fun one. This is one that might be considered almost a DOK3. It's definitely difficult too. So we know the rectangular prism volume on the formula sheet is big B times h, where B is really length times width times height. It tells you that the volume is 3x squared plus 18x plus 24. It tells you that the length is 3, and you have x plus 2, and we're trying to find our height, which I made h like that. So basically, this is how I would do it, and really this is kind of algebra-y, but there's a couple ways to do it. One, you know it's not going to be choice 4, and it's not going to be choice 4 because there's already an x on this side. So it can't be that, because x times x squared would end up giving you x cubed. It can't be choice 3, because if I multiplied 3 times x plus 2, there's no x to help increase the power to 2, so it can't be choice 3. Okay, for choice 4, for choice 2, I would say, well, let me see, what's 3 times x plus 2, and then times this height, which would be x plus 2. Well, x times x is x squared, plus 4x plus 4. If I multiply all of that by 3, I'm left with 3x squared plus 12x plus 12, which is not what I want. So it's got to be choice 1. Now, the proper way to have done this problem is to factor a 3 out here. Hold on. This is back in the day, if this was an algebra problem, we would factor the 3 out, which would leave us with x squared plus 6x plus 8. We would then factor this. And that we already have the 3, we already have the x plus 2, so we're left with x plus 4 for the height, which is what we got. So you could do it either way. All right, circular cylinder has an altitude of 11 feet. So let's draw a cylinder. All altitude means if you draw a line straight down from here to here, that's 12. Ooh, 11 feet. A radius of 5 feet. What is the, oh, lateral area. Never mind, you don't have to do lateral area. If you want to look up the formula, you can. The formula for lateral area is this, 2 pi r height, but we're not doing it, so don't worry about it. And that answer would end up being choice 4 if you're wanting to extend yourself, but again, it's not for the EOC. And notice I will say this, see how this says nearest 10th? So they are also testing your rounding. 172.7, 172.8, they're testing your ability to round. Same thing here. 345.4, 345.5. So we can assume that this was probably 344.5 and then a number that was between 5 and 9. All right, next. The diagram below, trapezoid ABCD. It has the diagonals. It tells us that angle ABC, this triangle here rather, and angle DCB are congruent. So now we know it's an isosceles trapezoid. We know it's isosceles trapezoid because we can do CPTC, which is corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So which statement is true based on the given information? AC, this diagonal, and BC are the same. Heck no. Here's AC and here's BC. Obviously, those aren't the same, so it's not going to be choice A or choice 1. CD, and AD, again, hopefully you can tell that they're not the same. Then it's got angle CDE, so this angle, and angle BAD, which is this entire angle. So obviously no. So finally, we're left with CDB, this angle here, and BAC, this angle here. And again, we would know that by corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Almost done. We'll finish. All right, in the diagram below, triangle ABC and triangle DEF, we know that AB matches to DE. And again, let's just write it out. ABC, DEF. This will help us to make sure we match everything up. It tells us that angle A and angle D are the same. And it tells us angle B and angle E are the same. Well, let's look and see what we have. We have an angle, a side, and an angle. It does not get any easier than that. Remember, side, side, side would be 3 sides. Side, angle side would be 2 sides with the inside angle. And hypotenuse leg, we need right angle. Which graph below represents circle K? Well, K, this point is at -5, +1. So because it's at, let's see again, -5, +1, we know we switch the sign, so it can't be choice 3 and 4. Here, my radius is 3. 3 squared equals 9. Okay. A couple more. Here we have this. We know this is a negative. Switch the sign. So we've got +3, -5. So it's not choice 1. It's not choice 3. A radius of 4. 4 squared is 16. So it's choice 2. The slope of a line perpendicular. So we're going to divide everything by 2. This allows us to get into y equals mx plus b form. It wants perpendicular, so my perpendicular slope is going to be +1/3. I wish they gave you more questions like that. Last questions, we can just finish the page. What is an equation of a circle shown in the graph below? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the origin is the center. So we know the formula is x squared plus sugar shoots. That's not the formula. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Well, because this is 0, we're just left with x squared plus y squared. And now we just have to deal with the r squared. Here, my radius is 4. 4 squared is, of course, 16. Choice 4. We did it! Except there's a whole lot of red on this page. I think we need like a yellow smiley face. So congratulations. If you did not hear, because so many people did not come to school today in my classes, the test we were going to do on Monday is now going to be on Tuesday. So you have a Tuesday test and you'll have a Wednesday test. Look at a nose. Okay. Great job, everyone. And yeah, see you on Monday.